we're ready? Okay. As Ronald Reagan once said, no government ever voluntarily reduces itself in size. Government programs once launched never disappear. Actually, a government bureau is the nearest thing to eternal life we'll ever see on this earth. Now, as the affirmative team, we wholeheartedly agree with Ronald Reagan, which is why we ask that you stand with us in affirming this year's resolution. Resolved, the United States federal government should substantially reform its foreign aid. Before we get into some points, let's look at a couple definitions to clarify some key terms in the round. Our first definition is foreign policy. Foreign policy. From foreignassistance.gov 2018, it says, foreign assistance is aid given by the United States to other countries to support global peace, security, and development efforts, and provide humanitarian relief during times of crisis. It is a strategic, economic, and moral imperative for the United States and vital to the U.S. national security. Definition 2, substantial. From Oxford Dictionary, copyright 2018. Of considerable importance, size, or worth. Now let's take a look at the background or the current state surrounding the issue within today's case. And that's our first inherency point of the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps. From Kurt Tarnoff, 2018. Founded in 1961, the Peace Corps has sought to meet its legislative mandate of promoting world peace and friendship by sending American volunteers to serve at the grassroots levels in villages and towns in all corners of the globe. As the end of September 2017, about 7,376 volunteers were serving in 65 countries. On March 23, 2018, the Consolidated Appropriations 2018 was signed into law, providing $410 million for the Peace Corps. Now, looking at this issue, we're going to be implementing our plan, which is going to be through Congress and the President. And you can tag our first mandate as it phase out all funding for the Peace Corps over the next 2 years to allow current volunteers to complete their terms and return home. Mandate 2, abolish the Peace Corps, excluding the Disaster Relief Program, Peace Corps Response, also known as Crisis Corps. Our agency is the USAID and any other necessary governmental body. Our timeline is immediately upon an affirmative ballot. And finally, our funding, no funding is necessary, but any unforeseen funding will come from normal means. The United States should be getting rid of the Peace Corps for these reasons or justifications. 1, it bolsters corrupt governments. Bolsters corrupt governments. From James Bovard, April 1st, 2011. Moreover, throughout Africa in the 1980s, governments butchered their people, scuttled their economies, and devastated living standards. Bad government policies starved far more Africans than did bad weather. Throughout much of Africa, governments monopolized the buying and selling of crops, and to boost revenue, most governments paid farmers far less than the market value of their harvests. Far from protesting these destructive policies, the Peace Corps enthusiastically poured in more volunteers to staff government agriculture bureaucracies. In some countries, Peace Corps volunteers toiled on state farms and cooperatives that had been unmitigated disasters across the continent, with production failing by 30, 40, and 50% or more over previous levels. Justification 2, it damages impoverished countries. Damages impoverished countries. From James Bovard, April 1st, 2011. Other Peace Corps volunteer evaluations tell stories of volunteers who urged farmers to fertilize that cost the farmers more than the value of the increased crop output. Indeed, volunteers' lack of economic realism often bushwhack the recipients of their benevolence. In Niger, for example, volunteers worked as extension agents for the government's union Nigerian Decredit Ed Corporation. But as Peace Corps audit concluded, in its agricultural operations, UNCC looks like a bunch of snake oil salesmen. The sad truth is that in all likelihood, more farmers have lost more than they gain by buying from UNCC. The agricultural program in Nigeria, one of the Peace Corps stars, was racked with problems in the 1960s. A General Accounting Office GAO examination concluded that only a limited number of these volunteers possessed the background, either by virtue or education of experience, required for the job to which they had been assigned, and that the technical training provided by these volunteers with the Peace Corps was not adequate or appropriate for the jobs they were requested to perform. And justification 3, it's economically illogical program. An economically illogical program. Point A, absurd annual payment. Absurd annual payment. From Thomas M. Hill, October 16, 2017. However, at approximately $56,500 per year volunteer, the Peace Corps is one of the most expensive civilian overseas programs funded by the federal government and nearly twice as expensive as Fulbright U.S. student program. The program's cost $410 million annually, coupled with its inconsistent development track record and the agency's inconsistent that it operate independently from the U.S. foreign policy, should raise questions for Congress about whether an entirely taxpayer-funded model is sustainable and a good use of limited resources. Subpoint B, there are more effective solutions. More effective solutions. Thomas M. Hill, October 16, 2017. Defenders of the status quo are quick to point out that the length of deployments makes the program unique, but that is changing. According to current population survey data from 2014, Peace Corps volunteers make up only slightly more than 10% of the total number of U.S. citizens engaged in international volunteer programs lasting longer than 26 weeks. Other programs could achieve the same goals and benefit a larger number of American volunteers and foreign citizens at much less cost to the federal government. It is for all of these reasons we strongly believe you should stand by the affirmative team to get rid of the Peace Corps because it fails to justify its existence, and we should remove this ineffective and harmful program.
Okay, just really quickly, can I have a copy of the case?
Of course, you go.
Thank you. Okay, just jumping into it, what percent of the federal budget goes into the Peace Corps? I
don't have a specific percentage, but like I was saying, it's $410 million being wasted essentially right now.
$410 million. Okay. Okay, thank you.